Some of what I want to talk about today, because people that come to these kinds of presentations are definitely, we're preaching to the choir. Everybody here, I think, believes pornography is not a healthy thing and is fighting it in their own way, and you're looking for help, and I hope that I could be a little bit of help. But I want to add a few new perspectives on what pornography addiction is, how it affects us, and a few things about what to do about it. And I want you to know, as a clinician, when I wrote down a few things that we could do in 35 minutes about what to do, I was very frustrated. Because there's so much to do. So many things, so many different stories, so many different ways it affects families and individuals. So we could spend a lot of time, and it's probably just because of my nature and my work, is that I spend time with individuals and we sit and talk and we resolve these things. So to encapsulate it, and I've done what I can to do that, but please know it is by no means exhaustive what we're going to talk about today. I want to start off just with those of you that have heard me speak before know I use this picture often. Mesa people, who can tell me where this picture's taken? Joe's Barbershop, fantastic. How many of you had your hair cut at Joe's Barbershop? Raise your hand. Okay, so I moved to the Valley when I was 11, and my dad took me down to Joe's, and I kept going to Joe's, and I still go to Joe's. Now I live in Queen Creek. I drive into Joe's sometimes. And Emilio, he's in the corner over there, cuts my hair. I love Emilio's haircuts. But why am I showing you this? I'm showing you this because I started in my youth going to Joe's, still go to Joe's. The point is the patterns we learn in our childhood persist. They stay with us. Not all patterns, thank heaven. I quit wetting my pants a long time ago, right? but some, and I want to say specifically, sexual patterns definitely persist, but they go undiscussed. So a little bit of a definition. I think the beginning of my new perspective is to look at old perspective. And so the definition that's often referred to, here it is. I'm going to read it to you. Addiction is the use of a substance or an activity, and in this situation we're talking about activity, for the purpose of lessening pain and augmenting pleasure by a person who has lost the ability to self-regulate the rate, frequency, duration of its use, and whose life has become progressively unmanageable as a result. So that's kind of a basic understanding of addiction and what happens. And so with that, the signs of addiction are pretty connected to that behavior. Now I'm going to expand on this because I'm referring to old perspective for a second. And what are those? So unable to stop the use of porn, those behaviors associated with porn, becoming angry, hostile, or irritable if you're asked to stop using porn. You continue to view porn despite negative consequences such as broken relationships or job losses. Or you have a lost track, you lose track of time chunks because of this porn activity. It's things that are fun to us time goes really fast when we're doing it. All things do this. But specifically in addiction, you lose big chunks of time. So what is this new perspective I want to present? And I'm going to start here. This is some kind of, I'm going to admit, heady research, but it points us in a little bit of new direction. So I want you to bear with me as I go through this and explain it. This is Bruce Perry. He's a professor of psychiatry in the Fielding School of Medicine in Chicago. He's also the director of the Child Trauma Center in Dallas. Here's what he says. Our brain is designed to promote relationships. Specific parts of the human brain respond to emotional cues such as facial expression, touch, and scent, and more important, allow us to get pleasure from positive human interactions. The systems in the brain that mediate pleasure appear to be closely connected to the systems that mediate emotional relationship. So I think you can see the implication where I'm going here. We know that the part of the brain that produces pleasure, and this is part of the brain associated with addiction, is inseparably connected to the part of the brain that helps us regulate emotional relationship. Key principle. Another quite famous, if you're in my field, researcher Alan Shore from California says, it is now established. And so if you're, if you are familiar with research at all and a researcher says it's now established, this means the research has been done repeatedly so often that it is now established that emotions are the highest order of direct expression of bioregulation in complex organisms, meaning humans. Why don't they just say humans? I'm not sure. But that the maturation of neural mechanisms involved in self-regulation is experience-dependent, meaning our behavior can change the things going on in our brain, and that these critical affective experiences are embedded in the attachment relationship, our ability to be close to others. So this kind of research has been going on and growing in the last 10 years about the connection and produce things like this. This is a book called Addiction as an Attachment Disorder. It's going beyond just the behavior. So the signs of pornography addiction have these behavioral observations, that my inability to let go, my inability to stop, my inability to avoid negative consequences, all very focused on the behavior of pornography. But what they don't focus on is what does it take away? What's the unspoken that's missing? And this idea of attachment is critical. So Flores, who writes this book, says, because of a person's difficulty maintaining emotional closeness with others, certain vulnerable individuals are more likely to substitute the vast array of obsessive compulsive behaviors, sex, food, drugs, alcohol, gambling, computer games, etc., that serve as a distraction from the gnawing emptiness and internal discomfort that threatens to overtake them. So this changes a little bit the definition that I originally provided about addiction. It means we could add something to it that's very obvious. The idea that addiction is somehow interrupting primary emotional relationships. Nice effect. My wife really liked that. It burns out love and replaces it with a relationship with something that is digital. So the new definition, the old definition, breaks down. And let's add a few things to it. The use of pornography for the purpose of lessening pain and augmenting pleasure, replacing the use of primary relationships and the attachment process, thereby losing the ability to self-regulate emotion and the rate, frequency, and duration of pornography use, and whose life has become progressively unmanageable as a result. So this is a critical distinction when we start to be aware of what is missing, because often in a treatment process, or when an individual decides, I've got to change this, what they do is they start with what we call symptom negative work. You know, if you go to the doctor and you say, my arm hurts when I do this. It's an old joke, right? And the doc says what? Don't do that, right? And this is the standard approach for somebody who tries to stop on their own, because they can only pay attention to the behavior. It's kind of what's in front of us. It seems what's real. So symptom negative work is critical. It's important, but it will never be enough. So symptom negative work are these ideas that we have to push away triggers. We have to get rid of the urges. We have to deal with behavioral things. We have to deal with access to pornography. We have to manage all the things that we have to stop doing. But the research is really clear. Without the symptom positive work, the symptom negative work won't be enough. So this is why what we experience is that men and individuals that are addicted to pornography try hard and they give their best effort and they relapse and they relapse and they relapse, and it destroys families, it destroys trust. These poor wives who stay in it for the long haul, and then after the fourth or fifth relapse in the 5th year of devastation think, it's never going to change. Usually this is because the individual has primarily focused on symptom negative work. Again, it has to be done. So what is the symptom positive work? This information, the new perspectives tell us symptom positive work is about attachment repair, relationship repair. How do I relearn to reach out when I find distress in my day or in my life, of any kind, not just sexual distress? Is my instinct realigning with my ability to reach to others? This is what pornography takes away from us. We lose the perspective of how we manage and emotionally regulate through our primary relationships. So I want to walk you through a little bit what this might look like, and how sometimes in the course of addiction treatment we talk a lot about an addiction cycle, and we're trying to get them to recognize the addiction cycle. Well, you see, this is a cycle of the symptom negative component of their addiction. We almost never teach the cycle of the symptom positive. What does an attachment cycle look like? What does that look like? Well, I guarantee you, all of you know what that looks like. Let me walk through that a little bit. So, it starts out with, let's use children for example, with what researchers call a secure base of healthy attachment. We have our children, they come to us, they're close, we gaze into their eyes and they gaze back. We have kind of an immediate connection going on with them. But as they grow older, things begin to happen. Stress and tension develops. And this is a normal part of life. What kind of stress and tension does a 5-year-old have? Stress and tension of a 5-year-old is they go outside to play in the backyard. Mom thinks they're old enough, she knows the side gate is locked, they can explore the play equipment and climb the tree maybe. But something happens that distresses them. They fall out of the tree and scrape their knee. Their big first experience with tension in their life. Well, what do they do with that? They reach out. It's instinctual. This is the important thing to know about the attachment process. It is instinctual in all of us. That little boy or little girl doesn't have to think about, what am I going to do with my scraped knee? Their instinct just gets them up and runs into the door crying. Help, help, Mom and Dad. And you know how little kids are. They're hypervigilant, they can't breathe, and they're not regulating their emotion. They need us to help them regulate their emotion in this moment of crisis. And so we are the source from which they seek relief. But the seeking of relief is done in the context of other. It's done in the context of somebody that's bigger and stronger and wiser than me. And I reach out to them, and they comfort me, and they soothe me. And as we bandage their knee and say it's okay, we talk calmly, and their emotions come down, and they accept the bandage, and then something powerful happens. Mom kisses him on the forehead. What happens when Mom kisses him on the forehead? It's all better. Let me say this neurologically. So, fall out of the tree, scrape my knee, stress hormones in my brain and muscles. Don't know what to do, panic, run in the house, go through this process. Mom teaches me, Mom helps me. The kiss on the forehead is the epitome of stress reduction. Stress hormones are now gone from my brain, from my muscle. And what do? When everything's better? Thanks, Mom. Bye. Out the door, climb another tree. Blood still coming out the bandage. They don't care. They now have what we call emotional resilience. That emotional resilience comes specifically through emotionally regulatory experiences with others. When we connect with others, we emotionally connect, we feel stronger. We can do hard things. And that dumps us right back into our secure base. In fact, it builds our secure base. The more experiences we have with this over and over and over and over our life, our secure base gets stronger and stronger. And we walk out thinking we have great confidence in life, but really what it means is we've had 14,000 experiences where we reached out to somebody and found comfort. And we trust that that process is available to us. So if this is the cycle of healthy attachment, this constant reaching out that we do to our significant others, to our spouses, to our friends, to God, the way we reach out and find the comfort that we seek. What happens then? What happens when that reaching out gets blocked? If falling out of a tree and scraping my knee, and I run into my house, my instinct runs me into a house that, gets me hit in the head for running in the house? Or, at best, has a single mom who's at work and there's nobody there. What can happen as a result of some blocked, instinctual reaching out is a process of isolation. I'll go sit on the side of the house and cry. I'll shut down, I'll pull in, I'll avoid. And it won't take long for that instinct to mute a little bit, to quiet, for me to mistrust it. And that isolation, the tension is still present. It's still in my brain, still in my muscles. What I do next is I start to seek stimulus. I'm going to look for something. I'm going to look for something to help relieve this tension. And unfortunately, our culture is all too willing to provide temporary stimulants that help relieve tension. Too much TV, too much food. I was waiting for my wife to say something about that one. So on my own issue there. Too much food, too much pornography, too much video games, too much drugs. We seek stimulus. And in this developmental process of trying to find relief, one of those experiences will evolve and produce an altered state. We'll get high. Let's say I'm 10 and I have life distress and my older brother's best friend gets me high. Wow, it really changes my perspective on life. Or I'm 11 and I see porn for the first time and it is a terribly thrilling experience. This altered state, this induced dopamine state in the brain, which I'm not going to spend much time on the brain, which I could spend an hour on. This acting out state becomes habitual. There's a chemical in our brain called delta phosphate that Mark Bell talked about. It's in the research. It's our remember and repeat chemical. It gets really strong. Remember and repeat. Do it again. But that acting out is so temporary that when it's done, we are almost shocked to find that it leaves so quickly. And so instead of producing emotional resilience, it almost immediately produces emotional frailty. So we're left in this vulnerable state thinking, why did I just do that? Well, to find some temporary relief. I've begun to mistrust my ability to get it through others, or I'm not even thinking about my relationship with others. And it dumps us right back in, bypasses our secure base that builds up inside of us, dumps us right back into the tension state. And it's now exponential. Because before, I may have had my scraped knee to deal with. Now, I have my scraped knee and I have my addiction to deal with. So this sets us up, especially with pornography. It produces a clear distinction for us now, but not for the individual at the time, between digital sexuality versus healthy sexuality. Digital sexuality is characterized out of being alone, feverish searching, clicking, multiple tabs, constant novelty, shock and surprise, is self-focused, and is full of intensity. It's chemical in the brain, excitement and thrill in the brain. Healthy sexuality is about courtship. It's about touching and being touched. It's slowly developed. It's about smells and pheromones, emotional connection, empathic responding, and it is other-focused. And this leaves us with a sense of satisfaction rather than intensity. Satisfaction has an additional electrical component in the brain that is calming and peaceful rather than about excitement and thrill. It's a little bit like, think of satisfaction experiences out of sexuality. Sitting on a porch on a cool, breezy day, calming, peaceful. When I work with pornography addicts or sex addicts, they mistake these two. When I say the word satisfaction, they think I'm talking about intensity because they cannot see this new perspective. They're yet still unaware of the attachment damage their addiction has done. All they can see is the hyper-focus on their behavior. So what does this do with our signs of pornography? We still have the ones we originally talked about, but it changes our awareness from just a digital-based experience to its absolute disruption of primary relationship. It gets in the way emphatically. So while we still have those several behavioral descriptors of signs of pornography, a few more get added with the new perspective. Reduced emotional connection and emotionally distant a lack of emotional connection during intimacy, difficulty reaching out to others to seek relief from distress. So we get a fuller picture of what's really happening in pornography addiction. We now see the damage it's created of the primary relationship and the function in it, not just the behavior itself. So what do we do about pornography? We have to confront the isolation. We have to tell someone. We have to talk about it. Get support from our family. We have to seek help from those that you love, a friend, an ecclesiastical leader, a brother, a cousin, a spouse. We have to get out of the isolation. We have to identify the triggers that numb and stimulate. We have to see them as temporary. Attend 12-step meetings. Seek spiritual counsel and help. Reestablish healthy reaching out. Seek professional help. And build a recovery plan. And build a support network. You see, most of these, all of these, and the pictures, what's unique about them?
People-oriented.
People-oriented, other-oriented. You see, we are addressing the attachment issue, not just the behavior. You cannot do this alone. Now, I often will get a client who is full of personal ability, successful in their life. Everything they've ever done has gone well. They work hard. They do great things. They endure to the end. They excel in everything else in their life. And when they get to this, they absolutely believe they can do it alone. They absolutely believe it. And they try and try and try. From the goodness of their heart, they try to do it. Because I don't want to bother others. I don't want to be a burden to them. But the brain change that has occurred, the increase of delta phosphine, the shrinkage of the frontal lobe, things I haven't really talked about, damages glutamate production in the brain. And that's where we get our willpower, is from that source, neurologically. It's diminished. You cannot do it alone. We have to come out of the shadows. We have to help those that have this issue come out of the shadow and into the light of day. This means, what do we do about pornography addiction? This means also we absolutely have to protect. So we can respond to addiction, but I'm pleading with you as parents. We've got to clog up the dam. We are not winning this fight. We have to work harder at protecting our families. I'd like to tell this little story. How are we doing on time? 10 minutes, okay. I'd like to tell this little story about you get a phone call. I'm at work, you get a phone call. It's not a real story, this is a metaphor. And you go home, park the car, walk around to the back door, and you notice the back door is open. And you go in the door, and you come around the corner in the kitchen. There he is, the man in black, the intruder. And he's got your wife by the neck. And you're frozen for a second. And in that second, you think, what am I going to do? You're looking for vulnerabilities. You're looking for a moment to reach. What is he going to do if I lunge at him? My body gets full of energy. How am I going to fight this? I'm going to think, why was the back door left open? Was it locked? Was it not locked? I would fight this at all costs. I would charge. I would run. I would kill. I would smash. I would protect my wife. I would protect my family. But when we don't protect our home, when we get open internet and do nothing about the fact that pornography is funneled right into our house, we leave the back door open. And an intruder's going to come in. He's going to get somebody in your family. We have to protect our home. So the message I'd like to give here is not a super technical message, because I'm not a techie guy, but I want you to know there's multiple levels of filtering. Getting a filter on your computer is not enough. You must filter in addition to that. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, one is you have to filter before it gets to your house. You can register your router with a group. This is OpenDNS.com is one. There's these DNS companies that provide security for governments and large companies, and they give it away for free. You register your router from them, and from then on, all the internet that comes to your house goes through them first. And they provide a level of filtering that you can adjust and you can set, and it's just one level. They're not super accurate because they're only going to catch stuff that's absolutely labeled as pornography. We know now the wave of amateur pornography is flooding the internet. So, but it's a great start. Next is you have to filter at the router. Pandora's Hope is one I love and recommend and use, and they're here this weekend. But this is critical because now everybody has internet devices. I can't tell you how many parents bought their children an iTouch for Christmas in the last 5 years and did not realize that the iTouch was absolutely internet open. They can get to anything. If you're not filtered, they can go anywhere. That puts it in their hand, in their bedroom, while they're falling asleep. The back door was left open. So Pandora's Hope gives you a level of filtering that filters to all devices. Any wireless device, somebody comes in the house, sure, here's our Wi-Fi code, so you can use your, it's got Pandora's Hope on it. It's going to filter. Again, not enough standalone, won't be enough. So now we move to the computer. We put software on it like NetNanny or K9. There's lots of them. I encourage you, there's a website called top10reviews.com, and they have the top 10 internet filtering software, and they do everything from send you an email when somebody hits a block site to blocking things. You could change the settings. They can be a little bit complicated. That's the problem with this, is they all can be very complicated, and parents get a little overwhelmed. You know, your kids know more about it than you do. And we think, oh, well, you know, what am I going to do? Well, you're going to get a friend. You're going to get somebody to come help you. You cannot leave the back door open. I'm going to estimate that 90% of the individuals I work with pornography addiction or sexual addiction started with when I saw porn between the ages of 12 and 14 in my own home, with my own device, with my own computer. My parents didn't have a clue. They had no idea. Don't forget cell phones. If you give your kids a smartphone, what have you done? You've put it right in their pocket. Now, with a smartphone, they don't even need Wi-Fi. You get their 4G or their 3G on, and they can go anywhere and do anything. Now, those are filterable. You can filter those as well. You can do some things. Research it. Find it. Don't buy your kids smartphones. Don't do that. It is very, very unsafe for them to have total access. Lots of dumb phones out there. It's a little bit of a hassle because the cell phone companies really want you to buy a smartphone, buy a data package. But it puts it right in their hand. So please be very, very cautious about that. So most of all, beyond protection, beyond responding, we have to build relationships of trust. And we have to believe in change. Change is possible, change is real, and it will not happen unless we have these kind of relationships. Relationships with our children, we have to start young. We have to build a relationship where we know they will come to us with questions. They will come talk with us about what's going on in their life. If their chain comes off the bike, will they come get us? Not if I act angry that it's going to bug me. I've got to put the remote down and come fix your chain. Really? That's it. They're not coming anymore. They're not coming. We have to build relationships of trust. Not just with our kids, but with our friends. Men need to get more open about this. They need to help each other. I talked to two men the other day who do not have pornography issues. One lives in Utah and one lives in Arizona. They're really good friends. They hold each other's passwords. They do that for each other so that they don't get into a place, because they're not mistaken that it's only for those people who are into it. We are all susceptible, every single one of us. And then primarily in our relationships, we have to develop a relationship of trust. We have to believe that we can help each other and love each other, and remember that repairing pornography addiction, the most important function, is about repairing our relationships. Learning again how to rely on, to reach out to believe in, to feel connected with, to heavy sigh, to lay your head on a shoulder, to give a word of encouragement. We have to find that again. We have to find it in our life and in our love. What is true love? We know what that is. We must correct it for our children. We cannot rely on pornography. We have to fight it at every side. I want to end with a little story about true love. It's my personal true love story. My wife's cringing. What is it going to say? So a few years ago, my daughter was dating a boy. Yeah, it was a pain. Anyway, I was at home, I was watching TV, laying on the couch, relaxing day, had the day off. He is on the couch next to me, and my wife is in the kitchen. She's cooking something. She says something like, I need a cup of flour, or I need a cup of sugar. I can't remember what she needed, because I knew what I thought she needed. And I said, I need a cup of Shannon. Her name is Shannon. And she giggles, and she runs around the island, jogs over, and jumps on top of me on the couch, and we hug and kiss for a little bit. And as I'm doing that, I look out of the corner of my eye to the boy, and he's shrinking like this. But I thought to myself, young man, it's okay with me, shrink all you want, I'm not stopping. I want to guarantee, whether you end up marrying my daughter, which you didn't, or whoever, that you absolutely know what true love, what real love looks like. Because it is not what you find on the computer. It is what's right here on the couch in front of you. Love is real. We have to reestablish it in the lives of our children.